Hello. First of all, before we proceed with our course on obligations and contracts, let us first have a simple introduction to the field of law. Okay, considering that this is your first law subject in your course. So first things first, what is law? Okay, there are many definitions of law. Okay, if you read books, different authors have different definitions. Dictionaries have their own definitions also. But my most favorite definition is one by Sanchez Roman. He said, law is a rule of conduct, just, obligatory, promulgated by legitimate authority and of common observance and benefit. So this is by Sanchez Roman. Sanchez Roman is a famous Spanish lawyer, of course in Spain. This is because most of our laws, especially our civil laws, are copied from the Código Civil of Spain. Okay, considering that we have been under the Spanish rule for 333 years, so it is but natural that we will be adopting most of our laws from them. So this is the definition by Sanchez Roman. Okay, let us dissect this definition. Law is a rule of conduct. So that is the first aspect. And he said that law is just. Okay, it is fair for everyone. Okay, at least it is presumed to be fair. And law is obligatory. It means everyone must comply with it. And it is promulgated by legitimate authority. Yeah, okay. Law is not just made by anybody. So it must be made by a legitimate authority. And everybody must observe the law. And the law is presumed to be for the benefit of everyone. In Tagalog, you can safely translate this as, ang batas ay patakaran sa pag-uugali na just or makatarungan at sa pilitan na pinapataw. Okay, this is enforced sa pilitan, whether you like it or not, you have to follow it. Ng lehitimong otoridad. Okay, yung gumagawa ng batas ay may otoridad na gawin ng batas. Okay, para sa pangkalahatang pagsunod at benepisyo. So that is the literal Tagalog translation of the definition. Okay, let us discuss this legal principle of ignorance of the law excuses no one from compliance therewith. So this is the complete sentence class, because most people would just say ignorance of the law excuses no one. Okay, putol. So to be complete, ignorance, you say ignorance of the law excuses no one from compliance therewith. Sa Tagalog, okay, ang pagiging ignorante sa batas ay hindi excuse na hindi ito sundin. So this is actually found in Article 3 of the Civil Code of the Philippines class. So this is actually a provision of law. Okay. Sometimes this is expressed in Latin as ignorantia legis non excusat, or ignorantia juris non excusat, or ignorantia legis neminem excusat. Okay, these are the same thing class. Okay, so the principle of ignorance of the law excuses no one from compliance therewith is an absolute rule. Absolute class meaning no one is exempted. Okay, whether or not you have read the law or not, whether or not you know that there is such a law, it is presumed that everyone knows about it. Okay, this is absolute class, ibig sabihin everyone is presumed to know, even if in actual hindi naman nila alam. This is necessary class so that compliance with the law must be mandatory. Okay, you cannot just say you will only obey the law if you know what the law is. Okay, that is a very dangerous proposition class, because everybody could just say, I do not know that there is such a law, so that they will be excused from being punished for violating the law. Okay. So according to the book by Hector S. Dillon, okay, these are the general divisions of law. Law class is a broad term, and Hector Dillon categorized this as follows. Number 1, state law. Number 2, non-state law. Okay. The first non-state law, according to him, is divine law. The second is natural law. And the third one is moral law. Fourth one is physical law. Okay, state law class is actually those laws imposed by the state. Okay, so in your ordinary parlance or ordinary word, you say the state is the government. But actually, government is just a component of a state. Okay, so state law class is those laws imposed by the state or by the government. Okay, while non-state law are outside of the laws imposed by the government. Most divine law is imposed by your religious faith or your church. Okay, so this is this kind of divine law is depends on what faith or your religious faith is. Okay. Natural law, of course, it is within you. Okay, the knowledge of what is right and wrong. When you are born into this world, you already know some form of understanding of what is right and wrong. Like a baby would cry if gutom siya, and he would smile if busog. Diba? It's just to know that it is right to be busog and it is wrong to be gutom. Okay. The natural law is within you. Okay, basic understanding of what is right and wrong. Moral law class is depending on the norm of conduct observed by a community. Okay, moral law. So moral law is depende sa community. So there are communities that allows multiple wives. Okay, that is their moral law. That is normal for them. But maybe for our moral laws in our community, that is immoral because in our own community, we only allow one wife for every husband. So moral law depends on the norms of conduct observed by your community. Physical law class, of course, is the law of physical physics or science. Okay, that is embedded in the world around us. So just know that there are two kinds of divisions of law. The state law, those imposed by the state through the government, and the non-state law, these are the non-state laws. So the basic sources and hierarchy of laws. Number 1 class is the Constitution. Okay, our Constitution is the 1987 Constitution, and the Constitution class is considered to be the highest law of the land. All laws that violates the Constitution is considered invalid. So the Constitution is considered the highest law. Why? Because the Constitution was actually approved by the people. Okay, this Constitution was made drafted by the experts in their own field through a constitutional convention, and after the drafting of the Constitution, it was submitted to the people, and the people voted yes or no on the adoption of the Constitution. Nanalo yung yes, so the Constitution now is actually adopted, approved by the people. That is why the Constitution is the highest form of law, because it is promulgated by the sovereign Filipino people. So do not forget that class. The Constitution is the highest law because it is promulgated by the sovereign Filipino people. Okay, in our form of government, the sovereign Filipino people is considered the highest authority. Number 2 class, under the Constitution, okay, pasunod to class from the highest. Legislations. Legislations is actually those laws promulgated by or made by the legislative body or the legislative branch. Okay. In the case of the Republic of the Philippines, okay, our legislations are made by the Congress of the Philippines in the form of Republic Acts. Okay. So baka may ma-encounter kay class ng mga batas pambansa, presidential decree, mga noon yun na batas under the previous constitutions. So iba yung title niya. Iba ang title ng batas. Okay, BP, batas pambansa. Currently, under our form of government, ang tawag sa legislations natin ay Republic Acts. Okay. Pero, yung mga batas pambansa noon, mga presidential decrees, okay, dahil hindi sila against the new constitution, those batas pambansa, presidential decrees na previously enacted, still valid. Why? Because some of them do not violate the constitution, so they are considered to be valid and existing. All other previous legislations which were against or violative of the constitution has been considered invalidated or repealed. Just know class that in our current government, legislations refers to those Republic Acts made by Congress of the Philippines. Okay. Administrative rules and regulations. Okay. Ito naman class, rules and regulations are actually made by the president, by the offices under the President of the Philippines or the executive branch. Okay. Why? Because those legislations made by Congress will be implemented, will be administered by the President and its cabinet and its offices. That is why in implementing laws class, these administrative offices under the President or the executive branch can make rules and regulations. Okay, the rules and regulations will contain the details of how the law will be implemented. Now, under the rules class, these administrative rules and regulations should not be in violation of the law, the legislation that they are implementing. Okay, it must just be details only of the laws that they are implementing. And whenever these rules and regulations are made, they are considered to be part of the legislation that they are implementing. So itong rules and regulation class is considered part of the law. Pero the rules and regulations is below the legislation. Kasi mas superior pa rin ang legislation kaysa administrative rules and regulations. Okay. So there have been rules and regulations class na gina-invalidate ng Supreme Court. Why? Because some rules and regulations, okay, is violative or in violation of the legislation, or they are expanding or making new rules na wala sa legislation. So administrative rules and regulations are valid and will become part of the law if they are not against the law. Number 4 class is judicial decisions, particularly the decisions of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court and the courts that we have now are functioning as the interpreters of the law. So whenever there are cases brought before the courts, the court will use the laws, our laws, the constitution, the laws, and the rules and regulations. They will interpret that and apply that to the case at hand. So whenever the courts will decide a case, okay, the decision of the Supreme Court explaining our laws, the constitution, and the rules and regulations, okay, will also become part of the law. Okay, class. So our laws will come from these four. Generally, will come from these four. Okay. The judicial decisions will also form part of the law. Because yung interpretation ng courts natin is the interpretation of our laws and therefore will become part of our laws. So, applying the definition of what is law, class, okay, only the legitimate authority can make laws. For example, in the case of the Constitution, the legitimate authority to adopt, approve the Constitution is the sovereign people. The legitimate authority to issue legislations is the Congress of the Philippines. Okay, the President cannot make Republic Acts because only the Congress of the Philippines has the authority, the legitimate authority to make legislations. The executive branch can make rules and regulations. Sila yung legitimate authority to issue these rules and regulations. Now, this is judicial decision. The legitimate authority to make judicial decisions are the courts, okay, not the other branches like the executive or the judiciary. So, for every type of law, class, there is a proper, competent, legitimate authority to make that one. Okay, all in all, these are the sources of our laws. Okay. The courts, class, is also called the judiciary. So, the constitution is by the sovereign people. Legislation is by the legislative branch or the Congress of the Philippines. Administrative rules and regulation is made by the executive branch or the president in its departments headed by the secretaries, department secretaries. Judicial decisions is made by the judiciary headed by the Supreme Court. Ang courts ng class, okay? If you look at our setting sa Philippines, okay, the highest court is the Supreme Court, of course. Then under that is the Court of Appeals. Then under that is the regional trial courts, and then the municipal trial courts. Now there are different municipal trial courts, class. In case of Metro Manila, it is called it is called the Metropolitan. Sa Manila, class, is called the Metropolitan Trial Courts, METC. Sa mga city naman, ang tawag naman is Municipal Trial Courts in cities. Okay. Sa mga municipality, of course, ang tawag Municipal Trial Courts. Now, there are courts, class, municipal trial courts na isa lang ang court pero ang coverage niya is 2 cities. For example, Alabel and Malungon will have only 1 municipal court. So dahil he is handling cases, this municipal trial court is handling cases from 2 or more municipalities, and then that municipal court is called the Municipal Circuit Trial Courts. Pero itong MTC, MCTC, MTCC, and METC are called municipal courts, municipal trial courts. Okay. So, i-classify lang sila according to their territorial jurisdictions. Special courts. Now, there are courts created by law, class, to hear special cases like the Sandigan Bayan. This is the court exclusively hearing cases on graft and corrupt practices. Court of Tax Appeals, of course, where you appeal your tax cases. Then we also have Sharia courts, class, hearing cases on the Muslim Code of Personal Laws. Quasi-judicial agencies, class, these are not actually courts. These are under the executive branch, but they are like courts. That is why they are called quasi-judicial agencies. Quasi means or sometimes other people would say quasi or quasi, but I prefer to read it as quasi. Quasi-judicial agency. Quasi means semi, or like they are like judicial courts. Quasi-judicial. Okay, parang judicial. Okay, they are like judicial agencies. For example, class, the Securities and Exchange Commission hear cases about problems pertaining to corporations, the NRRC to labor disputes, LTFRB on the issuance of franchises to public transportation, COMELEC class, nag-hear din sila ng cases pertaining to inclusion of voters in the list, okay, exclusion of voters from the list, qualifications of candidates for election. Dito yan hinihiring. Okay. And then the Commission on Audit hears cases on their audit and relative to their audit results. Okay. Why are they acting like courts class? Because in the performance of their functions, intrinsically there are cases na dapat nilang i-discuss in the office before it is appealed to the courts later on. But first and foremost, under our principle na any controversies pertaining to a public office should first be settled by that office. That is why they are like courts. They also hear, but their decisions can be appealed to the courts later on.